What's up, guys? We have another game with the white pieces against Stock Vichy. 1661. So we're playing strong people. We're opening up with the bishop's opening. He develops two minor pieces, but he didn't develop his king's knight. What's the drawback of developing the queen's knight instead of the king's knight? Well, it gives me the option of playing queen g4 because the knight's not here protecting this square. So now I'm trying to play super active, which is very risky because you bring your queen out early. Um, but it's an attempt to punish not having your knight on f6. You don't need to play like this if you can play a more calm game just with d3. That's not d3, that's d3. But this immediately asks questions because the bishop left this diagonal, so it's not protecting, and the knight's not covering the square. So I bring my queen in. So he says, you know what? I can do the same thing. I'll defend, and I'll create this threat, and maybe even this threat. So there's a lot of threats on the board. Drawback, walks into a forkable square. So black says, okay, I'll move away from the square and offer the queen trade. What's the drawback of this? The drawback is I can trade queens, and however he takes at the end of the line, I win material, I believe. Am I missing anything? I can start with check. I don't think that changes anything. I'm just going to start with check because I don't think it changes anything, and if it does, I'd like to have the move on the board to see. No, I don't see it. So same thing as the other move order. You trade queens, you give this check, and then you take the rook. No difference. Let me just double check. Nothing cool. Okay. So now he'll probably take this knight back at some point. So he just develops a piece. What does this threaten? Our center. We defend our center. Well, we defend. He jumps in. We go king over. He's also hitting this pawn. So if we defend and he jumps in, yeah. Is there a way to defend everything at once? This looks weird as hell, but it does defend everything at once. I'll just give him a pawn. I'm up the exchange, so let's just play normal moves. Considering I'm up in exchange. He doesn't even go for the line where he takes the pawn, so that's nice. He just develops a rook, kind of puts pressure. It's not a big deal though. What do we want to do? We want to get castled. Ideally queenside, I guess. I mean, we do want our bishop. We don't really want to trade it for the knight. So let's just put it here. Reasonable. If you put it here, he'll trade and then come after it with this knight move. So he's pressuring this pawn with 3 pieces. I had planned on losing it from the start. The drawback is now we have this check, which will either force a king move, which lets our knight escape, or he has to bring a piece back. So, okay, so he brings a piece back, which means it loses its aggressive option. So we're always happy to see that. Okay, now we still have pressure here, and potentially even losing the rook, depending on what we do. If we defend from the side, you just lose a pawn there. Let's try that. Let's defend from the side. If he takes with the bishop, he wants us to take with the knight. He'll hit our rook. And then when we go here, his knight's pinned, so that can't be good for him. If we take this way, and we're going to take because our knight's terrible, so we're just going to remove our terrible piece. He takes with the rook, but the rook threatens pawns and is defended by the knight. If we can kick the knight, the rook loses its defender. If we kick the knight, he can't give us any checks with either piece. He can't take a piece with the rook. And if he moves the knight, he hangs the rook. Now we're up 10 points of material, and he should resign, but doesn't. He hits our bishop. We're going to trade quickly to end the game because we're up everything. We bring our rook in to a semi-open file. Whatever. We'll just take it, open things up, bring our other rook in, get our king out of the way so our rooks are looking at something. And we'll throw in this check, force him to go back. Let's throw this pawn and try to break this down. He pushes past, but I'll try to break it down the other way. And he doesn't have other pawns to support it with. So he goes to attack my bishop. The drawback is it releases my knight. So I'm just going to release my knight, sack a bishop, trade for his other bishop, just to get all the pieces off the board. Because I'm up 2 rooks. Now I broke this down. And now hopefully you can convert this without me telling you. Because you're up 2 rooks. And a bunch of pawns. I'm just going to sack my rook for the knight. Now he'll resign maybe. Okay, this guy's not resigning. So I'm just going to push the pawns and make a queen. He'll resign very soon. There we are. Okay. You have to make them feel like there's no hope. You have to get to that point. So we get a quick win. But now we're playing Coulter with the black pieces. We immediately pressure the central pawn with our knight development. And he immediately blunders it. This is a 1600. And on move 3 hangs a central pawn. Now maybe it's part of his strategy. His quick development strategy. But I'm going to take the pawn. Thank you. And now that there's no e4 pawn, my d6 pawn, which was there to stop it, doesn't need to be there. I can go d5 if I want at some point. So he goes here. What does this threaten? My knight. I don't want to lose my knight. We go back. Most natural square. We're up a pawn. White's up a little bit in time. White moves the same piece twice, losing some time. But threatens a pretty important pawn. We want to stop that. We could play e6, but d5 comes with tempo. Controls the center, gives you a little more space. Right? It comes with tempo, whereas e6 does not, because it doesn't hit a piece. And okay, it changes the structure, so now you're not playing the like d6 e5 dark square pawn chain. You may play some type of light square pawn chain. Okay, so it's a little different, but it comes with tempo, and that's worth it. It's still a good structure, it's just a different one. Now I'm going to kick this knight, gain free lift for my king eventually. Also take away this square from his pieces, all for free. You don't have to do that. You could have developed, you could have went e5, c5, knight c6, bishop f, oops, why am I grabbing it? Bishop f5. You could have done like anything you want. So he brings his knight back. He accomplished a total of nothing with his moves. Wonderful. So now we can go, well, not e5, we can go c5. We can go bishop g4. Let's go bishop g4. We'll pin the knight, develop a new piece. And now we have the option of e6 or e5. He castles. We're going to stay more solid with e6. A little extra protection on the light squares. Our bishop's outside the pawn chain. When he puts a rook here, we won't have like a weak e5 pawn. So a little bit more solid, but if you can defend e5 accurately, you know, the pawn duo is obviously what you want to go for. So he develops his knight in a way that defends the knight so he can move his queen, but the c pawn never moved, so he can't really move his queen the way you'd want to normally. So this looks weird and blocks all his stuff. He can't fianchetto his bishops because his other bishop's in the way. So everything's in the way of everything in his position. It looks pretty terrible, but that's his problem, not mine. I'm going to continue developing. My bishop looks at the center as well as just active diagonals. So he puts the question to my bishop. I'm just going to keep the tension. If he wants to go g4, you're more than welcome to, weakening your king. Otherwise, that's a very annoying pin because see, now he goes c5, maybe trying to make room for stuff, but what's the drawback? It's not a piece move, a little slow, create some backward pawns, some weak squares. Okay, what does it threaten? I mean, if he takes the pawn, it's not really a threat. I'm just gonna castle, continue my development. He does take the pawn. I want control over the center, so I'm gonna recapture it with the pawn, blunting his pieces. You see the difference? Look at the bishop and the knight. If I had recaptured with the knight, he has all these nice squares hitting our stuff, so we don't want that. We take with the pawn, and he moves his queen so that this knight is unpinned. But he has an isolated D pawn, so structurally, long term, we're better. This doesn't attack anything. This is under pressure, but I think now that we've created this structure, we can, go with like a caro-kann setup of c6, solidify the pawn chain. This bishop looks dumb. He can never challenge this pawn with another pawn because they're not there. So it's just permanent control. His pieces won't be able to use these, and that's very good for me. And now black is easy development here with the knight, here with the rook, here with the queen. He moves his knight out of the way, potentially looking at the f4 square, and also potentially bringing in his other knight. That's all fair stuff. It's all reasonable. What do we want to do? Well, I think we just want to continue development. We're just going to bring the knight out. No big deal. It's the most logical move. Develop our piece. He moves his knight here like we thought. This is a good attacking square. It does create some problems. We don't need to let him take our bishop. So I'm going to move it here. Now why here? Maybe if one day I kick this knight, I can put the queen in front for the battery. Also, no reason to let him take it right now. If anything, he can take our light square bishop. So I'm thinking like bishop g6 and then take the knight. However he defends it, I'll give up my light square bishop. I'd rather have my dark square bishop. My pawns are on light squares, so my dark square can move freely. And white's bishop is misplaced. His center's worse than mine. He has an isolated D pawn. He's down a pawn. His queen's misplaced. Okay. I have a lead in development. His knight's loose. It's not supported. It takes 2 moves to support it. You can't actually go here because I'll snatch it. Maybe that's an idea though. Snatch it. He takes. And then run like a bat out of hell and put a rook here. I don't know. That looks sketchy. What is this? So he goes knight here. What does this threaten? A trade of pieces, but because he wants to go here. If I take, opens up his rook. I'm just going to go here like I wanted. Now the bishop's not loose. It's protected by an F pawn. Also X-rays the queen. Also on a great square dominating this knight. Sure, he gets to put his knight here, but so what? This square is under my control, not his. This square is unavailable. And now he made this knight just bad for no reason. And he made my bishop good. Has a cubby hole defended by a pawn. So you can see how this is improvement for me. Yeah, he got rid of that pin, but the pin wasn't doing anything once he moved his queen, right? Because it wasn't pinned. So yeah, he moves his knight here, but no big deal. Um, we can continue with strong development, I feel like. Uh, yeah, rook e8 is the most natural move, so let's not overthink this, right? And now we do want to connect the rooks. We noticed is not a good square for the queen at the moment. We do know that we do maybe want this battery. So what about a knight move, like knight to the center, giving us some space? You can't go here hitting the bishop because of the queen. You could move the bishop potentially to open up the c7 square or the b6 square. Um, I mean, so like, let's say bishop d6, if you have queen b6, you're threatening to take this knight because this pawn's pinned. So there's some stuff like that, but I feel like that's convoluted. He goes for this battery, but you're not going to sack the queen first, so it's a weird move, doesn't really make sense. You're blocking your own piece, this is never getting out, which means this is never getting out. So pretty terrible. Wasting time with the queen move. So what's an active move for me? Oh, maybe he also wants to support a rook here. That's a thought. I'm going to do what I said and just improve my knight, which... Oh. He moved his queen, which allowed this square, which I didn't have before. But whatever. This square is fine too. Now, if we take with the bishop, again, it's in front. If we take with the rook... The rook looks kind of weird because it blocks everything, so let's just take with the bishop. He could do this. Opens up his bishop again, takes some stuff in the center, but gives up control of the e4 square, which my pieces, they're doing pretty nicely. So now I could go here, but I think now I want it back on c7. For two reasons. One, to give my queen in the front, and two, because this is connected this way as a secret battery. So if there's like a rook here, there's a secret battery that's easy to miss on a5. Of course, you can't do it now because your rook will be, he could take it with check, but... And also because he played this, it stopped the queen b6 idea, so... So he goes back with his bishop. He's threatening to ruin our pawn structure. We don't want that, and we really don't care about our bishop. So we're going to take it. His queen is on this diagonal, but I can't coordinate with anything else light squared. We could mess up his pawn structure, but that would give up our bishop. So we need a good follow-up. Knight e4 hits the pawn. But then bishop out. Maybe g5. I don't know. His knight's terrible. I'm not giving up my bishop. I'm just thinking out loud. So, thing is, it can still jump here, which is annoying. Although, how annoying is it? I'm going to jump my knight and just take control. Improve descent, improve my piece, open up the f6 square for my queen. It does allow the knight trade, but this knight's going to f5 anyway, so I won't give up my bishop, but I will trade his knight for mine. Mine was better, but if he takes it, again, I'm going to put my rook here. I mean, you could even take with the pawn because the d-pawn's weak. But let's say I put a rook here. I mean, it attacks the pawn, and he can't contest me immediately. And now I have the queen battery, taking control of some dark squares, forcing weaknesses maybe. So I'm up a pawn with a better structure, better piece activity. So I should have a better position. He develops the bishop so he can put a rook on the e-file. I can take a pawn, but I am up a pawn. I'm going to start with queen d6, preparing to double and creating a checkmate in one threat. So he sees it, he blocks it this way. Fine. That undefends the light squares, so that's interesting. It could also pin the bishop, which is interesting. But I think I want to, I mean, you could definitely take the pawn. You can definitely double the rooks. Let's just double. I'm going to keep it super simple for you guys. If he puts a rook here, I'll trade them both. And I don't know. I mean, you could definitely attack here too. So he defends the pawn like this, but this is a terrible bishop. And this pawn is kind of garbage anyway, but if he wants to defend it like that, go ahead. Drawback is now I can bring my rooks in with tempo on the queen, because the bishop's not there. And this allows me now to kind of put pressure on the 7th. And because he moved his pawn, it's going to be easier for me to sack on g3 with a rook on the 7th, because the queen kind of coordinates on these squares possibly. So for example, if I have my queen here, I could sack my bishop immediately. There's options, there's options. But his queen's under attack. He tries to move it to the most active square. Doesn't create any threats though. And his bishop's still trash. I can force the queen trade, but can we kick his queen? Yeah, let's cover the light squares. Since we have no light square protection around our king, let's put our pawns on light squares since we have lots of dark square stuff. This will force his queen into a weird square unless he wants to go back into his half of the board. Because we don't, if we can avoid the queen trade, we have an attack on his king. So he moves the queen, but I feel like it's still attackable. Let's defend our squares. Well, he's not threatening anything just yet. So let's, if we bring in our other rook, he has queen checks. If we bring this rook back, not sure, but let's improve our position by bringing our king here. Our king defends all of these squares. And now we're ready to kick the queen one way or another. He goes for the rook trades. Which I'm just going to go for. He wants to trade both. I can live with that because now I have queen e6, which I guess he has queen d1 to avoid the queen trade, but okay, so instead he just allows the queen trade. We could do this and kick him, but let's just queen trade, and then I'll show you that because it's same color bishop, not opposite color bishop. I'm up a pawn, maybe I can win this, right? If it's opposite color bishop, it's harder to win. So we have two pieces, we need them active. Active, active, active. We're going to go b5 to control this square from this bishop at some point, so we can win this pawn. He goes that way. We're just going to go with this. Okay, so he wants to bring his king in, but I shan't allow it. I have 40 seconds. That's not good. But I should be fine. So how do I win this pawn? Well, first let me go here so his bishop can't go here. Then I can attack it and try to force his king to babysit it. My king can't enter this way or this way. So it kind of has to go here and like support a push or something, or a push. So my king can't really be improved until I do something with my pawns. My bishop can be improved to here or to... Okay, so he's attacking a pawn and threatening to defend this way. We're going to make some room for our king. And this is our extra pawn. Right now we have an extra C pawn. So now we have an extra light square for our king. He can't shoulder us because his king can't touch those squares. He could go here, but maybe we could push past, check, up. Okay, so king up. We want to get some light square control. He goes back and forth. But now I'm going to maybe attack from this angle. Or maybe I should have gone here. I only have 30 seconds, so I'm not really thinking. I'm just trying to do intuitive stuff, but... Here. I guess if he's in Zugzwang, he's going to have to allow it. So like here, he makes a bishop move. Oh, never mind. But that's a free pawn because my bishop protects. And you can't go here. Ouch. Talk about Zugzwang. Double protect. He can't trade because it's obviously winning. Sneak attack. F6 Zugzwang? I guess bishop here. Check. Oh wait. I'm confused. I only have 15 seconds. What's happening? Okay, just... I don't know. I need to get king on light squares. He can't give me a check. Oh, what am I doing? Check. Check. Oops. Whatever. He ran out of time. Just go back and forth when your opponents do that. That worked. Okay, he was just tied down. In a classical game, you basically have infinite time to come up with a winning plan. Because of the way the position's set up, you have nothing to worry about. Like, you're not taking any risks, so you have all the time in the world. His bishop's tied down to the queen possibility, so easy win. So yeah, that was fun. Keep climbing. We're almost at 1600. Hopefully you guys learned something. Good luck in your chess.